All right, good morning, everyone. It's just around 2:30 on Saturday morning, and we're back with a new update about Tropical Storm Delta. It still is maintaining maximum sustained winds of 60 miles per hour and will continue to move off towards the north-northeast at about 15 miles per hour. So we'll go ahead and put this in motion. Again, quickly falling apart and not looking like the storm it once was early on this morning, and of course later on this afternoon when it did make landfall. It is beginning to slowly fall apart as it continues to feed in on some of that drier air and some of that wind shear, and also the fact that it's over land and it's interacting with friction. You know, normally tropical systems prefer those nice warm waters and low shear, but of course when it gets over land, that's why it weakens. We are, however, watching a little bit of some bubbling convection. Nothing to be too concerned about, but it's just kind of popping up in the midst of what's looking like a breakdown of what we're currently seeing with Delta at this time. So checking up on our winds, and let's just say it was a little interesting when we got off the air here at the West Monroe studios. We actually did get our power off for a good, I would say, maybe 30 seconds. Well, it really wasn't too long. Brian's confirming with me, but we managed to have the power back on, and then we were able to get back on the air. And of course, we're also on Facebook Live as well, bringing you guys the latest updates. So here is the current winds that we're seeing across the Arklamas. We do have a 37-mile-per-hour wind in Monroe, which is just around tropical storm strength, and we're starting to lose some of our sensors across our southern parishes. We do know Natchez, for a good chunk of the night and in the early morning hours, have been seeing tropical storm-like conditions as well. And note that center of circulation now over LaSalle Parish, and like we said, will continue to move off towards the north-northeast at about 15 miles per hour. And pretty much like what we were expecting, most of those heavier winds and tropical storm-like features were going to be around and to the east of this center of circulation. So we'll go ahead and zoom out and take a look at some of our regional winds. It's starting to pick up just a little bit in Jackson, 15 in Shreveport, and beginning to die down a little bit in Lake Charles and New Orleans. But of course, we'll go ahead and take a look at those wind gusts, because we actually did get a report of a 63-mile-per-hour wind gust at the Monroe Airport. Now here at the studios, you most likely saw a wind gust of about 49 miles per hour. We're up to 39 mile per hour wind gusts in Ruston, and we see a 41 mile per hour wind gust in Greenville. So things slowly backing off towards Vicksburg. And again, like we keep mentioning, we're not anticipating these winds to strengthen anymore, because as the system continues to die down, so will those winds. So we're not expecting 70 mile per hour wind gusts. We're not expecting 80. So I think this is the most we're going to be seeing throughout the rest of the morning until Delta officially moves out of our area. So with that being said, hopefully everyone is just kind of sheltering in place, keeping yourselves updated. We're doing our best. Again, we continue to see power flashes here at the station, so we'll continue to stay on the air as long as we still have power, and we'll continue to post online and do Facebook Lives and make sure that you guys are updated, because we do know a wide variety a lot of people basically across the Arklamas are without power at this time, especially in Ouachita Parish. I do believe the numbers last time were at about 21,000 here in just Ouachita Parish alone, and I would predict maybe about 35,000 plus people across the Arklamas without power at this time. Again, like we mentioned, this is not a LoRa setup, but judging by these number of power outages, I think I can maybe confirm this with Brian, with these power outages, do you think it's looking very similar to LoRa or a little bit better, or what do you think?
Well, we're starting to see a very high volume, especially across Ouachita Parish. Just from what I can recall, at least right off the top of my head, when we did have LoRa move through, Ouachita Parish was somewhere in the vicinity of about 30,000 people being out. So let's go ahead and jump right into this here. I'm going to show and kind of give the viewers an update on exactly what we're looking at as far as power outages go. Again, we're starting to see more reports of power being out across more of the Arklamas, and it's generally in these central sections at least. And even some of our eastern parishes starting to report more of those outages. So as far as Ouachita Parish goes, over 25,000 people now are out of power across Ouachita Parish alone. And that's getting pretty close to what we saw in LoRa, unfortunately. Again, we had a very high volume of power outages during that time frame. Morehouse is now over 5,000. I'm going to kind of just highlight some of the higher affected parishes here. Generally spans from Morehouse Parish down to Ouachita. Even down to Jackson, which is at 1,500 customers without power. We also have 1,600 in Caldwell. We also have over 2,200 now in Wynn Parish. Starting to see more power outages popping up in LaSalle Parish. We have over 1,200 people without power there. We also are seeing nearly 1,000 people without power in Concordia Parish. We're seeing still just over 600 in Grant Parish. Generally, though, we're seeing lower amounts kind of especially off towards the north and west, although we are starting to get some of those reports generally across southern Arkansas at this time. So again, power continues to go out, folks. Again, at least at this time, across Ouachita Parish especially, it looks like more of the rural areas are losing power with this storm. I want to emphasize that generally downtown West Monroe and downtown Monroe look pretty good, at least from the Entergy grid that I have up here. And it's mainly those surrounding communities and surrounding parishes that are starting to lose more of that power. So there's a big old swath of lost power generally between Ouachita Parish and down into Jackson Parish. Seems to be with the highest concentration, and also stretching up into portions of Morehouse Parish. So again, quite a few folks without power this evening, and not shocking considering some of the higher wind gusts that we've seen through the course of the night. Lexi?
And I went ahead and switched to our live storm tracker Doppler radar because that's the one that we really haven't showed you so far with this 2:30 update. Again, most of the rainfall off towards our west looking a little bit lighter, as indicated by that green color, but we are seeing some heavier precipitation across looks like Union and Morehouse parishes at this time. We are beginning to see a little bit of orange and reds in there, indicating some heavier rainfall along, I would say, eastern Ouachita Parish and into Richland Parish at this time. But it does look like rainfall here in the ArkLaMiss is beginning to lighten up just a little bit. And we do still have a couple of flash flood warnings for our southern parishes that will continue until 3:15. So maybe another good, I think, about 45 minutes for this for these warnings. So it does include Wynn, Grant, LaSalle, Caldwell, Catahoula, and Concordia parishes again until 3:15. And really, that has been the only warnings we've seen so far. We haven't seen any flash flood warnings for the central or ArkLaMiss or even up towards South Arkansas, and that, you know, we'll go ahead and take it. But either way, we do know some areas have been seeing some torrential amounts of rainfall. We do know that some areas have reported 6 inches all the way up to possibly 10, and I believe maybe even more than that at this time, the last time we gave you those numbers. And we do believe that most of those higher numbers are, of course, across our southern and eastern parishes, where we were anticipating most of that heavier rainfall and the larger rainfall totals to amount to, especially across our southeastern parishes, where we did predict maybe about 6 inches or greater of rainfall. So either way, it's there's going to be some minor flooding on the roadways, especially once the storm moves out of our area. So roadways will most likely not be as safe. So it most likely will be a good idea to kind of just shelter in place until we are given the all clear. Not to mention that we're still getting reports of wind damage with trees down and power lines down that could block those roadways as well. So again, just make sure that you are staying off the roads. Wait till you're given the all clear to hit the roads once again.
Here, do you want to switch places?
Yeah, let's go ahead and switch places.
All right, so what we're doing too, kind of off scene for folks maybe that aren't seeing us on the air, we're kind of also doing a Facebook Live on our KTVE KARD weather page. So that's why we're kind of in the background here, juggling a few things at a time, making sure folks, as many folks as possible, get the information that we need across our area here. So again, I know Lexi was just talking about our live storm tracker Doppler radar here. I want to kind of point back to some of these wind gusts that we're seeing. And the good news is we are seeing improvements as far as the overall strength of these wind gusts. We're seeing now wind gusts of 40 miles per hour as opposed to 50, 60 miles per hour across our area. So as we've been mentioning, this storm continues to weaken. It continues to fall apart here as it moves further towards the north and east. And even though it's been a painfully slow process of these winds starting to die off, we are starting to see some improvement, especially as these winds are moving through. Notice too, it's very pockety, like there's only pockets of some of these higher wind gusts overall across our area, and folks are just the unlucky ones are getting into the pockets as this thing kind of continues to spread out laterally as it really falls apart here heading into the early morning hours on Saturday. So I'm going to back up to our original current sustained winds. There we go. Sorry, it froze for a little bit. I want to back up here and show you what we're dealing with as far as actual sustained winds. Still holding at 37 miles per hour here in Monroe. Starting to see some slacking of winds, though, generally off towards the east. And notice how none of these stations off towards the south are reporting anymore. Likely either power was knocked out or there could have been some damage done to some of the reporting stations. So kind of gives you an idea of who is losing power here, especially folks across our southern parishes and even up to the I-20 corridor. We're starting to see more widespread power outages occurring, at least at this time, and winds really starting to get going now, especially across the eastern half of southern Arkansas. So those winds holding a little bit further north and east, and generally it's going to continue to bring its issues with it as the center of this system gets very, very close to the Twin Cities. Delta Center now just to the south of Monroe and continues to push off towards the north-northeast, roughly at about 15 miles per hour. So thankfully, this system is moving quickly. However, because it is moving quickly, that's why we're still seeing those strong winds at times. So we're going to kind of get close to wrapping this up here. Again, I've been telling folks we've been jumping in and out of air, just kind of staying updated with the latest here as, you know, the system continues to wind down here. But it's going to be a very gradual process when it does. Again, the satellite presentation of Delta is just absolutely horrendous here, especially from a tropical storm standpoint. What is even going on? It's just all kind of collapsing here and really not looking like any sort of stereotypical tropical system here. But nonetheless, folks across the ArkLaMiss certainly know what's going on with the amounts of gusty winds and very, very heavy rainfall we've been seeing through the course of the day today. So again, even though it looks like Delta is pretty much done, it's not quite done yet. And again, it will continue to really fall apart here, but it's going to look like it's going to take some time for those winds to kind of follow suit and eventually slack off here as we head into tomorrow. Good news is, though, this should be out of our area by the second half of our Saturday. We should be pretty much done with all the impacts from this system by then. And then Delta will be a long distant memory, but we'll also, depending on what we see in the coming days, determine on what we have as far as cleanup and recovery. So again, frustrating night to say the least. I know this is the last thing that folks wanted to deal with as we just got over Laura about a couple months ago. But generally, it's here again, and at least not on the magnitude that we were dealing with Laura, but certainly an issue as we go into the start of the weekend here. And again, just to emphasize, folks, if you don't have to be anywhere this weekend, if you don't have to be anywhere now, I know a lot of folks may not be sleeping very well. If you have to be out and about tonight, just be very, very careful. Recommend that just stay home and ride this thing out as it moves through our area. But all in all, and this goes to, you know, if we start to see damage cleaning up, just give crews plenty of space as we head into the couple days so they can get power back on to folks who need it and all of that. So again, generally staying though at tropical storm force winds. We really haven't seen hurricane force winds really at any point. Maybe some gusts along our southern parishes at times, but generally it's been low to moderate and tropical storm activity across a good swath of the ArkLaMiss.
Yes, so again, this is continuing until most likely the early morning hours, maybe aiming for about maybe 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm talking on Facebook Live here. And we do apologize for the sound. It's just we can't connect our microphones to the Facebook Live, so we do apologize. We're trying our best to make sure that you guys can hear, and we do apologize for that. But we're going to continue to kind of go over this at least one more time to give you guys an update on what's going on with the weather. And that's why we're kind of showing you the graphics as well. Again, we do apologize for the sound. So I'm going to hand you back off to Brian, and then we're going to show you one last time what we're currently seeing. If you are just now tuning in, again, we're doing this for Facebook Live, and we're also doing this for our TV viewers as well, if you guys still have power. So again, if you're just now tuning in, we're going to go ahead and give you one last summary of what we're currently seeing here in the ArkLaMiss at this time. This is Tropical Storm Delta. It did get downgraded at the 1 a.m. update with maximum sustained winds of 60 miles per hour, moving to the north-northeast at about 15. And we will continue to see this move off towards the north-northeast over the next several hours. Hopefully everything, at least the worst of this, should be wrapping up by later on this morning, hopefully around 6, 7 o'clock. So this is something that we'll be continuing to watch, and we'll be here to bring you guys latest updates. We're not going anywhere until all of this is pretty much out of our region. So one last look at these sustained winds. We had that center of circulation now beginning to move into northern portions of LaSalle Parish and into Caldwell Parish. And you can see some of those heavier winds right there. 37 mile per hour in Monroe, which is just around tropical storm strength, 26 in Ruston, 22 in Monticello, and now we're getting up to about 30 in Greenville and 17 off towards Vicksburg. We'll go ahead and skip the region and get straight to our local wind gusts here, because they have been going back and forth just a little bit, but they haven't been as bad as when this system started rolling across the Arklamas. We do have a 49 mile per hour wind gust here in Monroe, and again, that center circulation just to the south of the Twin Cities at this time. 46 in Ruston, so Ruston's wind gusts are picking up just a little bit, and we are beginning to lose some of our weather sensors as well because of the winds knocking out power and such. 29 mile per hour wind gusts in Vicksburg, and we're beginning to see 48 in Greenville. So still seeing very tropical storm-like features with this system as it moves across the Arklamas. And again, this is an area that did have that potential and was issued under that tropical storm warning yesterday afternoon, and that carried over into today. And again, most of it was for our southern and eastern parishes, and that did include Ouachita Parish as well. So those winds anywhere from 30 to 40 miles per hour, and those gusts up to about 50. And we did actually see some wind gusts up to about 60 miles per hour in some areas, but we do believe that those wind gusts, at least at that speed, are pretty much over and done with, because again, as the storm continues to weaken, those winds are gradually going to back off. One last look at our live storm tracker Doppler radar here. Again, seeing most of the moderate to heavier rainfall across Union and Morehouse Parish, beginning to see a little bit more moderate rainfall heading up towards South Arkansas, while lighter rainfall continues across most of the western Arklamas. We still do have those flash flood warnings in place until 3:15, so most likely within the next 30 minutes they should expire. And that's really the only warnings we've been seeing the entire time the system has been moving across the Arklamas. We really haven't seen any flash flood warnings up towards the north of the current flashing boxes that you do see on your screen here. And something that we really haven't mentioned too is that tornado threat really has been non-existent, which at this point is a very good thing. We'll go ahead and take it, but we weren't really too concerned about it because most of that was going to be off towards our neighbors in Mississippi, east of the Mississippi River. We still had that potential of it, but I think at this point, I think we're pretty much good with that tornado threat. Brief spin-up could still happen. We're not going to completely rule it out until the system is officially moved out, but I think for the most part, we're just going to have to continue to worry about those winds and, of course, that heavy rainfall.
So yeah, we'll probably jump up on, we'll probably cut in around 3:30 again on air. However, I don't know if we'll do another Facebook Live, considering that conditions should be improving enough by then. So again, we're just going to continue to monitor the situation and just see how this is ultimately playing out. Good news is, again, folks, we are heading in the right direction as far as, you know, seeing those wind speeds coming down. They're just taking their time. It's a gradual stair-step downward. We are seeing those about 10 miles per hour lower than what we were about an hour ago. So that is encouraging. Again, they're going to be sticking around, though, for a little longer. So we're going to continue to push updates here and continue to watch it for you as it moves through our area. And we'll have another update out soon. But until then, just continue. If you want to stay updated, we'll have another update online for you coming up shortly. All right, well, thank you all again so much for tuning in, and we will check back in with you a little bit later on. Just continue to stay safe.